Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Bruce and today I actually wanted to talk a little bit about Hoya Nomenclature. So I know personally I struggle a little bit with Hoya Nomenclature. There's just so much to know, there's so many details, there's so many abbreviations that just seem to just fall into place. And so I'm just always like, is this how it's supposed to be? Question mark? I have no idea. Anyways, while I'm doing that, I actually have a little note about all the nomenclature. I will have a link at the bottom for very specific abbreviations, and I'll get into that one a little bit later. And as I'm doing that, I'm actually going to be unboxing a little package here that I got from Ann Kin. I won this Hoya one of her auctions. And actually, I'm just going to open this one up right now. Shouldn't take me too long. I hope you guys are doing a-okay. It is currently Monday, I think, question mark. My sense of time has been out the door, out the window, non-existent, especially with me working so late. But you guys could probably skip ahead a couple of seconds anyways if you guys don't want to see this unboxing. Yeah. Never stop. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of packing peanuts. I'm just going to dump it out here. It's fine. So actually, this would be a great example of what to talk about for the video. So in... Oh, there we go. Oh, she gave me an invoice. It makes me so sad. It makes me realize how much I spent. Anyways, thank you so much, Ann Kin. So this Hoya should be the Hoya Panchoy. And so in terms of naming, so whenever it comes to naming and the naming nomenclature, there's always going to be the genus first, and then it's going to be the epithet. So an epithet is just is also called the specific epithet. The epithet is going to tell you like the specific variety within the genus. So you can't exactly say, let's say, serpens. So serpens would be the specific epithet, but you cannot just say serpens because is it the philodendron serpens? Is it the Hoya serpens? You just don't know. And so until you add in the Hoya or add in the philodendron or the let's say that there's an Anthurium serpens, then it will finally become a species. So then it would become Hoya serpens, and that's the species. You cannot have a species name without both the genus and the specific epithet. So, okay. And oh, it's such a baby. Okay, so here we go. I did not realize how small this boy was. It's so cute. It's fun size, like me. I'm going to just call this little Bruce Jr. There we go. So if you guys ever ask, this is little Bruce Jr. Okay, let me just try to get all the tape off. So Anne sent this to me on, I think Thursday. It just came into in my mailbox today, and today is Monday. And this is all within this past week. I'm kind of bad for the recording, and so this is what y'all get. Yay! Oh, okay. So here we have this little cup. There's some holes at the bottom, so I don't have to try to make some. The soil stayed intact pretty well. There's some pretty decent roots in there. And so here we have the Hoya Panchoy. It's about the same size as my fingernail, so I'm not sure if you guys are going to get that or if the lighting's going to wash me out. There we go. So I'll put that there for now. And I'll get back to the video. So I just went over the naming and spelling. Oh, not the spelling. So when you spell any variety, or not variety, whenever you spell any species name, you'll have it where it's philodendron, where the P is capitalized for philodendron, but the specific epithet, or let's say serpens again in this case, would be lowercase at the beginning. So it would be uppercase P for philodendron and then lowercase s for serpens. Same thing with Hoya, capital H for Hoya, and then lowercase s for serpens. All right. And so usually whenever you're spelling these names, it'll usually be in italics. But because usually most of the time it's going through a lot of sales through Facebook or what have you, that italicization is lost. And then, let's see. We went over the naming, the spelling. So let's say that you're in a philodendron group or a philodendron Facebook group or what have you. You do not have to worry about putting in philodendron. You don't have to worry about putting the rest of the philodendron. You could just do the capital P. Because you're in a group that is more specific to a specific genus, you don't have to worry about constantly adding that genus into your listing if the group that you're in is more focused on that genus, if that makes sense. So let's say that I am in Hoya Haven BST, or let's say that I'm in Hoya Lovers Facebook store. I do not have to constantly say Hoya's Serpents. I don't have to say Hoya's Cast or Hoya Sarawak Cream. I could just do, I'm looking for a Sarawak Cream, because that group is more specific towards Hoyas and they shouldn't be really selling anything else. All right, so now we're going to get into a little bit more about the nitty gritty. And so this would be like CV, AFF, Variety Cultivar, some of the names that just kind of like get thrown in there, but you don't really know why. And so I'm actually going to start with AFF. I'll get into CV a little bit later when I talk about cultivar and variety. So AFF is also called the affinity. It's also called affinis, and that's the Latin form of affinity. And all that means is it's indicated, it's just indicating that it's related or it resembles another type of species. So a good example, I actually just picked this up today, would be the Hoya affinity Bertinae. The reason why is because it looks like a Bertinae, even though that's sold as a Billabata from your big box store, it looks like a Bertinae, and so it's going to be affinity Bertinae. Now, until there's some sort of gene sequencing or whatever, there's no real way to actually tell whether or not if that's an actual Bertinae or if it's from a related family or what have you. All right, so that's pretty much all it is for affinity, is just that it resembles or it looks like another type of species. So I just now remembered that talking about species, sometimes you'll see SPA, so SP. I'm assuming that that just means species. I didn't really find it when I was doing my research, but I was more focused on learning more about the variety and the cultivar. So if I'm assuming right, the SPA, all it means, or all it's really telling you, is that there's no identification, there's no classification. It was just found in a certain region, and that's all they have. So like this Monstera Peru, this is also called the Monstera SPA Peru, because this comes from Peru, but there's no actual clear characterization or identification or just anything like that that gives it its own unique name or anything like that. Kind of like how the philodendron Melanochrysum X verrucosum is now called the philodendron splendid. And I'm actually going to get into that one just in a little bit. So we're going to be talking about cultivar versus variety. And the reason why is because there's a website, and I'll try to go ahead and link that down below because I thought that that was a pretty interesting read. But basically, they almost mean the same thing. So the way that they described it is you'll have the species, and remember, the species is the genus and a specific epithet. You cannot have the species name without either or. It has to be together. So usually you'll have the species name, and then you'll have either the CV right after that or the variety, which is VAR. And so CV, all that stands for is cultivated variety. So if I understand this correctly, the main difference is that with a variety, the physical changes in a plant occurs naturally, and they are genes that are passed down from mother to offspring, and they're able to be germinated. So let's say that a plant has, or actually, let's talk about the Philodendron verrucosum. There's so many different varieties. There's so many different characterizations of Philodendron verrucosum, and it all depends on where it's from, and it's been named differently depending on where it's been. And so most of the time, it'll have a Latin name describing specifically the change or the difference from that one in comparison to the overall general genus of or species of that one plant. And so there's some varieties of Philodendron verrucosum where the petioles are hairy. Sometimes they're not hairy. Sometimes the veining is more prominent than others. Sometimes it's more red on the back, or it doesn't have the red on the back. There's so many different things different about it, and that's what makes it a variety. And that those characteristics can be passed down from mother to seed. All right, so that's how I understood it, and so I'll just roll with that. The next one is cultivar. So the way that I understand cultivar is that it's kind of like a GMO, so it's been genetically modified. It's kind of like, if I'm thinking about it correctly, it's kind of like corn, where before it might have just been like a type of grain or fiber, and then we started cultivating just the ones that specifically grew big bundles of fruit. And so a cultivar could be anything that's been grafted as well. So it's not just genetically modified like with corn. It could be grafted, so like roses. Why? So, if I remember this correctly, roses are actually grafted, and so what they do is that they basically trade the root systems between a wild type and the roses that you usually see in a garden. So the reason why is because the thick stemmed roses, the one that gets really big and bushy and super thick, the reason why they graft those ones is that those roses naturally have really weak root systems for some reason. But then the wild type, it has really short shrubs, the vining is not that strong, and so but the root system is so nice and is so stable and so strong. And so what they do is that they graft it so that way the plant is able to survive its living conditions and is able to handle its new environment a little bit easier. So yeah, let's just roll with that. The next one is actually tissue culture. So tissue culture could actually be a cultivar, and you could actually see this with the Monstera deliciosa Thai constellation. Now note that whenever you see the spelling, it's usually Monstera, and then you have the deliciosa, and then right after that, you usually have the single quotation marks encompassing Thai constellation. And that's actually a good indicator stating that that is a type of cultivar. Another example would be any hybrids. So this could be like Hoya Chelsea, Hoya Swiffer's Tail, Hoya Michelle, Hoya Noel, just anything that is not Latin based, I guess you could say, or just assume, but most of the time they will have a single quotations mark right after. Sometimes people name it like Hoya CV, and then they'll have the cultivar name. And so it's not always. Actually, scratch that. I'm just going. I lost my train of thought. It's okay. But yeah, so again, a brief recap of what a cultivar can be is that it's genetically modified, it's grafted, it's been tissue cultured. So you might be asking, well, if it's genetically modified, could that still be a variety? And the answer to that would be no. The way that I understand it is a variety is what happens without human interference. And then a cultivar is whenever you step in and you're cultivating a very, very specific gene in a species of plant. So let's say that you're looking for the most prominent type of Philodendron verrucosum, and you're specifically looking for super hairy petioles and super prominent veining, then you'll constantly breed and breed until you finally reach the point to where they have both the hairy stems and the prominent veining. And so because that would not happen naturally in nature on its own, that would be considered as a cultivar. So I guess another way to describe cultivar is that we're changing it specifically for the physical appeal, and it shouldn't hinder the overall function of the plant, or it could end up altering it. But with a variety, what happens is that it's just natural selection. Whatever survives, and it just kind of gets passed along. All right, so that's pretty much all I have in terms of the naming and trying to explain everything that I found. There's more specific naming for Hoya itself, and this could be like IML for Iris Marie, and I forgot what the L stands for, or it could be RHM, and this stands for Ricardo Morier or Morier. He's the one that runs Rickens Refers Hoyas on Facebook, and so those two specifically, they would name Hoyas that they found or hybridized after themselves because it's basically their work and they should be acknowledged. And so there's actually a whole list on Vermont Hoyas from Doug Chamberlain, and he kind of has a list of all of the abbreviations, or also like AH for AH Hoya from Thailand. And so he'll have all of those abbreviations on his website if you ever need that. I didn't want to include that into my video only because I didn't want to steal that work from him, because he did do all that work, and so I'll just go ahead and try to link that down below. What else? I think that might be... Oh! I remember now. So usually whenever you see like RHM, you'll see, or actually, let's talk about my NS 05-240. So the first set of numbers, the 05, is usually the series in which they found the plant, and then the 240 could be the number, or the... Yeah, so it could just describe what number in the series that they were able to find the plant. So let's say that you're going off to Thailand and you're just collecting Hoyas and just seeing which ones have been or have not been discovered. The ones that have not been discovered, and let's say that it's your first trip, it would be something like 01, and let's say that it's your first Hoya that you found that was undiscovered, you could do -001 or 01-1. So it just all depends, because there's also hybridization, and I'm not sure how people choose to name that, as in I'm not sure if they do it with a series of generations of plants that they've been hybridizing, or how they do that, but At least that's how I've been able to understand it. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas about that, go ahead and comment that down below. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram where we could talk a little bit more, please go ahead and do that. I am at scrumptious_greens because I am a snag who collects plants. Hey, shit face. But yeah, so that's all I have for you guys, honestly. Yeah, I guess until next time. Goodbye.